You know, actually, can we just do this now? We can do this to make fun of me for our Good Hands plays presented by Allstate. We're going to do this at halftime. The first time it's ever happened to someone who's just played a half of football. Sam Darnold in the first half against the Washington Commanders. This is a live break-in. 16 for 16, 282 yards and 4 touchdowns in a half.
16 for 16?
Ball don't touch the ground.
Without Cooper Kupp. Without his second best receiver.
Whatever, just put Torrey Horton in there. He'll just eviscerate whatever Commander's defense is back there.
Gosh, wow.
Just put C. White on the field. You get C. White out there? Oh, it's over, baby.
Congratulations to Sam Darnold. He's having a hell of a season, and it only gets better when you get it reminds me a little bit of how we overreacted to a lot of the Chiefs stuff, because the Chiefs struggled early in that game against the Commanders, and then they fell apart. But anyway, we gotta give Sam Darnold all the love that he deserves for the good hands.
And JSN, who might be the best receiver in the league, had 120 yards and half also. Like, as his march towards 2,000 yards is taking a big step forward. And, like, I don't know, the Darnold thing is so interesting because we put this ceiling on him, rightfully so, after the last couple games he played at the end of last season, despite the fact that, like, of course, there were issues with the Minnesota offensive line as well that went into the playoffs, and they were not the same team that they were as they looked like a buzzsaw with that defense earlier in the season. But Darnold has quietly, more quietly than last year, had such an impressive season for someone who we wrote off as like an artificial ceiling for the Seahawks team, and he's been really, really impressive for them. Like, he is not a ceiling for the Seahawks offense. It can be or is.
I mean, it's not just a one-week thing, but Charlie, just so you know, he's been pressured twice on 16 dropbacks so far.
We got 2 pressures?
You got 2? You got 2? I got some bad news. When you got in pressure, Sam is 2 of 2 for 19 yards. So
we know he's not 2 for 3. The ball's not touching the ground.
The ball's not touched the ground yet. So, you know, there has been no incompletions off of those pressures. But I really think this is like the most extreme example of, if you keep him clean, he is going to make it worth your while. And he's in situations where he doesn't have to play from super far behind. He's not in situations where he has to throw for, outside of the Bucs game, hasn't been in many, if I can recall, many shootouts this year. It's not like he's had to be throwing 40, 50 times a game. He can be in heavy doses of play action. He can be in situations where you're playing to his strengths. And I think it's credit to the Seahawks for putting him in those spots. But, I think it's very similar to what the Vikings had last year, where it was just, he did not have to be in the spots where he was stressed and made mistakes. And so I think it's a credit to them to building a team that they can do that with. But I don't know that I feel any differently. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I just mean that as an observation about, like, just when Sam Darnold's going to be really good and when he's not going to be really good.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear Charlie say that maybe it makes him feel better about how poorly his team is playing. But, like, I think that Sam Darnold, we saw how good he was last year in good situations, and he played well in some bad situations also. But I was surprised to hear you suggest that tonight is some sort of, like, moment that puts it over the top as, like, he's moved up to some elite category. Like, I still think if
that's what it sounded like, that's not what I meant. I just meant, like, in totality this year, I think he's been incredibly impressive compared to where the narrative was.
I think some people could have come out of last year thinking that last year was an aberration that was impossible to repeat. And the fact that he's repeating it on a new team does feel like that's saying something about him. I still think that he's not quite at the level that, like, if things break down around him, we'll see a different version. We'll still see a different version of him if things break down around him. But maybe we'll never have to see that if this defense keeps playing well.
Well, ironically, a guy I assume we're going to talk about today who's been this player all season and had the first time all year where it did not break down that way for him is Domonique's favorite, Daniel Jones, who did get in a spot today where they had to play from behind, in part because of some bad luck or some Daniel Dimes mistakes. And we saw he's going to take some hits. He's going to didn't look terrible. They got back in that game a little bit, but he looked a lot more like the Daniel Jones people have been waiting for him to turn into versus the Daniel Jones who's looked so cool and collected and consistent throughout the year. And that's not, again, to say Daniel Jones sucks, he's a fraud, he's a mirage. None of those things are true, but just you have quarterbacks who are more susceptible to those spots than others. And Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, I would say Jared Goff's another example of that we're probably going to talk about. Those guys kind of fit into a bucket. And that's just the reality of what they are, for better or worse.